Ghost in the machine, a veil over the eye. Race is a lie, a script for the managed, a reason to die. It's the dementia, the spirit, it's the glitch in the code. It's the heavy, heavy baggage on a sovereign road. Dissolve the construct, yes, yeah. It started as a lie, a whisper in the dark, designed to keep the brothers from finding the spark. Father is a soul whose sovereign operating system was no longer whole. He didn't pull that trigger from his fully human place. The construct had the wheel, the construct ran the race. So stop fighting your father and dismantle the disease. If a lawyer wrote the code, the architect holds the keys. What was manufactured can be dismantled.
Great Wednesday, and welcome to the Fully Human Trinity podcast. I'm your host, King, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Mike and Jess Esther. How you all doing today?
Fantastic. Process.
Well, as we like to normally get started with, let's do our check-in to get our energy and our vibrational rhythm right. So,
is King frozen or am I frozen?
I'm not
frozen.
frozen.
Neither one of you are frozen to me. I'm very blurry, though, King.
Yeah, Mike, you are.
Yeah, you
do
look
blurry.
pretty blurry.
How do I fix that? Because I have a new something fully in my, so I don't have access anymore.
It should be a camera at the bottom of the screen.
Go to your little settings, Mike.
Camera.
Yeah.
Oh, then I just lost myself. Okay, let me do this. Yeah, I don't have many options here.
There should be a little flywheel at the bottom, like a little gear.
Oh, flywheel. Okay, yeah, gotcha.
And you go to visual effects.
Okay, gotcha. And then what? Blur, none. So just do none. How's that? Better?
That's much better.
Maybe my cameras or my thing's dirty too. It wouldn't surprise me. Okay, good. Gracias.
All right.
Sorry
Jess
about
is
that.
gone. No problem. Jess disappeared out of there. So we'll go ahead and get started. Mike, what's your spiritual energy number from 0 being life sucks to 10 being life is awesome?
It's 10 today, thank God.
Excellent. I join you as a 10 as well. And what would you say your gratitude is? What you grateful for?
I'm so grateful today. I'm super grateful for everything. So many positive things happen in my life. So that's a 10 as well.
And I'm grateful for my life, my health, my ability to see, hear, walk, talk, stand, breathe, and have sound mind. Another 24 hours. And I'm grateful for my problems, because through those problems, I see opportunities for growth. So with that being said, I join you as a 10. Going through my gratitude list always puts me at a 10.
Nice.
So let's get into our conversation today, Mike. I want to start by first, you and I, in my opinion, were part of a extraordinary meeting yesterday, and in the God is Tears community circle, where I saw and I got a chance to experience 3 men, and Jess is back. Hey, Jess, you're back.
We've recovered.
Quick check-in, Jess. What's your gratitude level? And what's your spiritual energy number and your gratitude level?
My spiritual energy number is 10. I'm grateful for love.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, what I was sharing was that, and you were part of it as well. We were part of God is Tears community circle yesterday. And to me, I found it to really be a profound conversation, because what I witnessed firsthand, just being an observer in that group, it was 6 people, 3 men and 3 women. 2 of the men were talking from a perspective of being caregivers and having lost their wives to cancer. The third man experienced his wife having cancer. And then Rachel, as the face of it, being the woman who's going through cancer and is going through a healing and feeling gratitude as a result. I find it phenomenal. And then listening to the conversation that resulted as it happened. So I just kind of wanted to get you all, we didn't do a post meeting about that. So I want to start this meeting off with just kind of what are you all thoughts and feelings about yesterday's conversation.
Go ahead, Jess.
Yeah, I found it very touching. I mean, there were a lot of tears shed, but it was really beautiful to witness the full circle of seeing how Rachel came into contact with Mike, seeing the journey she had with Mike, really receiving her gratitude that she has for Mike and for Mountains of Hope was so heartfelt. And it was beautiful to witness Mike receiving that gratitude.
Yeah, in addition to that, I mean, I'm grateful for her. You know, it dawned on me while we were having the conversation, it was a year ago. Honestly, it feels like 5 years ago. And but it's just amazing. You guys didn't see, well, I don't think you were there when she arrived, right, Jess? And
Right.
literally, I mean, this woman was as close to death as you can get, and in a wheelchair. I think she said yesterday she weighed 108 pounds. And to see the transformation was just amazing. That was just with the detoxification, the nutrition, some of the biohacking things that we do, and the love of our staff and the nature. And then, of course, the natural killer cells helped her a great deal once she left there. And honestly, I mean, you know, we had 40 cancer patients there last year. I'm so surprised that she's still surviving this and thriving with this, and now reaching out to help others, which is, to me, the highest calling that we can find here in this earth. So it was just, and it brought tears to my eyes as well, to see her and hear her and hear about her experience. So I was very grateful to see her again.
Yeah. There were three really important aspects that she pointed out. One was her medicine journey that she had there with a couple of death doulas, and just expressing her gratitude of how they allowed her to have a real healing of the heart, where she came to know her own essence. And they have stayed in contact with her, and she feels so much gratitude for that community that has continued beyond a day, you know, a moment in her life. The other one was the oncologist there. I was there on the phone with her that day that she received more shocking information about the state of her cancer, and how she has handled each of those shocking events, I think is the force within her that continues to grow. Because now she's like at the point where you're at, Mike, where you're saying, I'm quite fearless. Like, there's nothing anyone else can tell me or do to me that can knock me down, because now I know how to face that and how to stand in that. And then the other part was the coherent healing ceremonies. Like, that is such profound medicine that I know we can continue moving forward, especially as we come together, just holding that intention of love together for 5 minutes a day, or however we choose to co-create more love in the world.
Yeah, and actually we could do that remotely. If someone wants to reach out and be the Healy, we could do a short 5 to 10 minute guided meditation, and believe me, and there's no separate, there is no time and space in reality, but it can be done remotely as well. So it's so powerful for me when we do it at Mountains Hope, because I get to see our staff, the cooks and the groundskeepers and the guys growing the crops. That's what fills my heart to see, because they want to be there, and they don't even speak English, but they're still there. And so that's what fills my heart. And I think all that love resonates with the Healy, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful experience when we do it there.
And to that point, what I've experienced myself being there is just, like I said, you create a healing environment, and then everybody there, in conscious capitalism, we have 4 pillars, and one of them is you got to have a higher purpose for what you have a business for. Number 2 is you have to be a servant leader. Number 3 is you want to create a conscious culture. And number 4 is you want to practice no egalitarianism and make sure your stakeholders benefit from your business, not just your shareholders. Those are the kind of 4 agreements of conscious capitalism. Yeah. And my point of saying that is that Mike, what you exhibited was that conscious culture that was there. And it became even infectious with the residents. because they too were helpful. Like I talk about Angie and Pam walking through the labyrinth with me, and everybody making sure that I knew where I was going. I'm talking not the staff, just people checking with me in the morning because they knew I was new. They had been there for a week and a half. They knew that in your new environment in a new country, you're trying to get your bearings, and there's so much to process. And you're feeling your energy from the plants that you have. It is extremely beautiful there, and that's something that blew me away as well. It's not just a wonderful experience from the staff and the food and the buildings, but the landscaping that you mentioned earlier, Pan the landscaper. So I'm just curious, that entire culture that you were able to create there, what drove you to make sure that intentionality was there to have that kind of culture there?
Well, to be honest with you, I've done that in every business I've ever had. I'm finally getting caught up in my life, and I just spent 2 months in the States cleaning out. My son's garage was full of my stuff, and my daughter's garage was full of my stuff. And I found I used to teach to my car dealership personnel called 12 Steps to Success. It had nothing to do with selling cars. It was all about manifestation and becoming successful and becoming spiritual. So I've always created this culture because I was blessed to meet someone that took time out of his life to, when I was in a tough spot, to really educate me and teach me how this world really works. And it's once you understand that, and you can stay away from bad habits, it's pretty easy to navigate. And so, but in Mountains of Hope, I mean, because our work is so heavy, and what we're dealing with is so heavy. And what I have noticed here in Colombia is that, the poorest people, the people making minimum wage, which isn't a lot of money, it's only like $500 a month, are the most giving, kindest, loving people. I mean, literally, if you stop and ask someone on the streets for directions, they'll take you there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I also find that the more educated and elevated they are, you don't find that as much. It's a completely different culture than the United States when it comes to that, almost like a caste system in India. But I think, but we're lucky too. Even our doctors are very kind and loving. And so we're just blessed to attract those people. And but the ones that stay, they get it. Not everybody gets it, but the ones that stay, they get it. And I was just having a conversation with one of our guest advocates an hour ago. He's just telling Mike, there's nothing like this place in the world, but we have to have, everybody has to be 100% committed, and then it just flows perfectly. And so that's the beauty of it, the culture of love, really. And so,
yeah, it was profound, and that was one of the reasons why in building that conscious culture, you invited Jess over there. And I want Jess, you to speak to this, because I, being at that time a patient there, or a guest there, not a patient, and receiving the protocols you were actually helping to establish, you working with and being kind of the spiritual love anchor of Mountains of Hope. And I remember how Angie resonated with you, and how much I'm actually, I can't believe I'm getting her name right now. But everybody was building with you and really feeding off your energy, and how you were able to really just be patient and caring with other people. And I just kind of want to talk to you. I want you to talk about how you pretty much loved over there and made those folks feel that deep resonance.
Yeah, I noticed that as they were going through their process, that there was a lot that was unresolved, kind of similar to you, Mike, of saying you went back to the States for 2 months and you went to dig some stuff out of 2 garages. It tends to be the thing that we need to do as like a cathartic process when we're going through the storm. We kind of like, the storm creates a lot of upheaval, so you can kind of see the disaster of it. You're kind of like in the eye of the storm. And as you look around, you get this 360, like, oh, I got some cleanup to do. So oftentimes the cleanup looks like a personal one-on-one session where we're just holding space for you to just kind of look at all of it, maybe create a plan for how you'd like to clean it up. We call it life planning. And then there's just this thing that happens that was you mentioned with Angie, where it comes to this place of like, oh, I'm actually surrendering to the fact that I'm going to transition from my body. And in that surrendering, I want to leave something. I actually want to leave an impact. And that's where Angie was, to say, I have a legacy to offer. And it creates this huge amount of momentum, this huge fuel. We're seeing it with Rachel right now with Goddess Tears, because it's where the life force still has energy and direction to go. And I know that what Angie was requesting was just time to sit and write her life story and to be able to offer. I mean, she did these programs for addicts, and she had created a lot of virtuous lessons, and she wanted to translate those lessons into generic language that we could utilize at Mountains of Hope. And she was saying, as she was at Mountains of Hope, please help me give this to Mountains of Hope as my offer back. So that's kind of the work that we do, is just like the transition support, the planning, and the legacy building.
And you spoke of Angie. I just want to inject this, Mike, because I don't know if you knew this, but I speak from the guest perspective. And as a guest perspective, I got a chance to hear all the behind the scenes commentary of how they felt about what Mountains of Hope, their experience and things of that nature. And it was some fascinating people that you had there. Mm-hmm. Like Angie, as you talked about. Angie was a person, and I never met anyone like Angie prior. Angie was a woman who had an apartment using real estate. Again, real estate being my background as well. She had an apartment building that she rented out to addicts. And she constantly kept having grace for these addicts in the context. And again, addicts are the people, as most people know, who've had dealing with an addict. They're the ones that's really in their shadow, that you really can't trust them at all as far as how they're going to keep their word and integrity. So if you're looking for that, you're going to be disappointed. And she surrounded herself with those individuals and that energy, and still had loving grace for that. And shared with me that her son was homeless a block and a half away, who was an addict. Yeah. So that wreckage from not being able to help him, and the frustration for not being able to help him, propelled her to give love to all these other people. And that, to me, is what really shaped my whole thinking about how important it is to look at the wreckage to wisdom, and how people in these very difficult times, when they're at their deepest, most vulnerable part, choose love as a way and lean into love and serving others. And that's what you've done, Mike. And you shared your book with me, from getting, as you say, your storage lockers in order and your life story. And it's been fascinating, reading your book and just listening to what the things that you've accomplished in your life, but more importantly, I would say the pain you surround yourself with, of folks coming to you at these most vulnerable, crucial times, and you being there to be that shoulder to lift them up. And I just wanted to talk about, how do you still continue to lean into love at those most challenging times, when it's so easy to get into yourself and only focus on what you need to do for yourself?
Because it's ingrained in me now, and it's such a blessing and such a feeling of fulfillment and purpose. You guys both knew Julian, who was a guest advocate there, a wonderful young man who's 22 years old. And I've been speaking to, I just got back to Medellin Monday night, so we've been talking a lot. And before I left a couple months ago, I had to let him go because of alcohol and drugs. And he did some things that weren't right towards me personally, right? And so I said, here's the deal. And I involved his father as well. But I said, here's the deal, because he loves Mountains of Hope. I said, hey, you can't work here anymore. You can't be on the property anymore. But if you go to Alcoholics Anonymous for 90 days in a row, and you bring me your 3-month chip and verification that you did that, then you're welcome back here. So I think he's like on day 45 right now. And he called me every day, and he's so excited. And he goes to a meeting every day. And to see someone, because he could have thrown his life away. It's very easy here in Medellin to get in the wrong group and go really on the wrong path. It's very, very simple. And he's very smart, and smart people can really get in a lot of trouble here. And his brother, his oldest brother, is homeless for many reasons. So it's beautiful to see someone that young, because I was 23 when I was given that opportunity to transform my life. And so it's just beautiful for me to now speak to him and share certain prayers that we say, and watch his life transform. Because, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who was in Germany during World War II and could have gotten out, he stayed. And his quote was, "A righteous man lives for the next generation." And so I heard that many, many decades ago. And so I try to live my life by that. I have 4 children, 8 grandchildren, 2 more coming in August. So I want to leave this place better than what I found it. And I think it's really important now that more and more people see that. I see so many people, listen, I've had the big house, I belong to the fancy country clubs, and I've done all that stuff. And it just, for me, wasn't fulfilling, because my dad wanted that and aspired to it and never achieved it. I did. And because I was programmed to do that, but it just wasn't me. It wasn't fulfilling. And this work is, and we're eternal, timeless beings. And so the higher the frequency that we can vibrate by helping others when we do leave this body is going to be a much better experience for us in the afterlife.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, I always go back to Mountains of Hope because of the profound impact it had on me. It's like my life is now divided into before Mountains of Hope and after Mountains of Hope. And because, again, I met Todd and Pam there and the impact they had on me. And they would have been part of, I don't know if this is true or not, but based on the geographical location, they would have been part of the MAGA movement in the United States. And I didn't get any of that energy when I was there from them. I got love energy from them. And I saw a definition of what love looks like. I saw Pam sit through a ceremony that was a challenge. That was my first time having a medicine ceremony. Had no idea what to expect, what I was getting into. And you all know, you all have been through several of them, and Jess was right there with me going through that. And I watched Pam sit there with her husband, Todd, as they took the medicine in, and they went through going through their protocol all night long until the morning, and all what the medicine brings out of you. And she stayed there with him that entire time. And I watched them, once that was over, hold hands as they walked back to their sleeping quarters. That to me showed me what real love looks like, not the love I hear about in songs and all the things we hear about. And Jess, you were there to experience that love from some folks, again, going through the time where they can transition, where they can be rushed to the hospital, where they can have these breakdowns health-wise. How did you prepare yourself to deal with that and still keep yourself in the love energy space as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like I was prepared, kind of like when you asked Mike the intention behind how did he know how to build this. I feel like I was prepared from my friend Nanette, who took me through the journey, asked me to be her death doula in 2022. She taught me how to create an environment that would be safe and how to continue to create kindness and compassion so that people could actually heal. And as she was going through that process, she talked a lot about her vision of having a healing center and having her family be in ceremonies where they can do their own healing. So I feel like that's the original place of where I started to learn it. But specifically for that ceremony, Todd prepared me. 3 days earlier, he was in the hospital. And he asked me to come sit with him. And I spent several long days there. And Pam was very frustrated that they were there and not at Mountains of Hope. And so it was a practice of just holding space and continuously creating what Nanette taught me, which was that I don't need to fix anything, that I just need to be human with them and just be understanding of what they're going through. And all I could hear from them was that they wanted to get back to Mountains of Hope and they wanted that healing. And Todd was holding this crystal and talking about needing to get outside and that the crystal needed to connect to the sun. So I took that crystal, I put it in the sun. I also gave it a moon bath, and then I brought it back to him. And he was like, I need to take this crystal back to Mountains of Hope and I need to have my healing. And he was adamant. So I reached out to a friend who was in my community, already trusted in the psychedelic plant space. And I asked him, do you have a recommendation for someone in this area? To which he did, to which, like, you know, we had a beautiful medicine man come onto the property, have a conversation with Mike, and Mike welcomed him in, understanding his path. And that's how it happened. We were able to sit in ceremony with our beautiful medicine man, with the medicine, with the intention that Todd had of how do I receive this healing at Mountains of Hope. He was very clear about that. So there wasn't a lot for me to do other than continuously holding space, which I think is a gift in what Mike also received in knowing how to create a space with intention, because there's not a drain on the person who's holding it. It's actually very fulfilling to hold space. I think back in the other construct where we were programmed, there was a process of sacrificing oneself to save another. And that whole construct dissolved with the initiation of understanding how to hold space as someone goes through a transition. So I hope that answers your question of like the intention and the holding space and understanding that I got more out of it than I put into it. You know, I also was there to witness their unconditional love and witness Todd's healing and know that he had everything he needed inside of him to head home and to complete his transition at home with his family.
And I love hearing that story because Todd was a challenge for me. I was having a difficult time connecting heart to heart with him. And of course, Pam is very easy to do with. And I spoke the other day about, you know, there's being cured and then there's healing. Because, you know, Todd eventually passed away when he went home. But I believe that he healed in so many different ways at Mountains of Hope. And now Pam, who's left behind, is using that healing that she experienced, I think, to make an easier transition through her grief. I saw her post on Facebook on Father's Day and mentioned Todd, of course, and her sons. And it was just a beautiful post. You know, I've had some interactions with her since she's left and he's passed. So listen, there's many ways to heal, and nobody's going to stay in their body forever. I have a good friend named Dale who runs a organization called the Living Dying Project in Marin County. And he's been helping people transition for over 30 years. In fact, he was in India studying under Maharaja, a guru, with Ram Dass for 3 years. And when they returned back to the States, they created a dying center in New Mexico where people would go to die consciously. And that he was such a blessing for us when my wife had her last week here. So listen, we're all going to die. I don't like the word die. We're all going to leave our body. We just don't know when, but get prepared now. And because then you're free, and then you can really enjoy this journey and realize that it's not that serious, that we are eternal and that we are spirit. And this physical animal body is just a vehicle to experience this 3D reality, which has many, many beautiful gifts and joys and things that we can't experience outside of this body. So embrace it now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, that brings me to a quote that I shared with our group chat yesterday. I wanted to bring back into this because doing our call with Rachel yesterday, and that to me was really profound to witness. And that was 6 months in building that up, by the way. That's why it's so profound, is that because I'm documenting in real time the person who loves to create systems and understand why people behave in certain ways. 6 months to have a Zoom meeting that was so profound, so impactful, so vulnerable with folks who allowed me to be there and be present in that and sharing that. And then Rachel said this. She said she felt that love was like God. And I thought about that and I said, that's interesting, because I look at love as being a synonym for God as well. And it reminded me of a quote that I had read previously from Ralph Waldo Emerson. I want to share that with you all. It goes, every soul is a celestial Venus in every other soul. The heart has a Sabbath and jubilees in which the world appears as a hymeneal feast, and all natural sounds in the circle of the seasons are erotic odes and dancers. Love is omnipresent in the nature as motive and reward. Love is our highest word and a synonym of God. And again, that's a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson. So again, hearing that, and if you read 1 Corinthians chapter 13, it talks about God being a synonym for love as well. And so when you really understand that when you're living love, you're living God, if you really want to interpret it in that context. And that's what I found to be so fascinating about you, Mike, as I read your story, is how many times you were living love in those times where most people would be prejudiced, most people would have their biases, most people would turn and feel themselves to be in a higher position than women that you've worked with. So I want you to share about the work you did in Oakland, working with women who were Black and dealing with Black and brown, dealing with cancer, and how you were able to work with them and lift them up, and why you did that as well.
Yeah, for some reason, I don't know why, I've never viewed myself as better than anybody else. And at times, in dark moments, I would view myself as less than other people, right? But the reality is that we're all, on a spiritual level, we're all the same, okay? And I shared this quote the other day, that there's many ways to measure success. There's fame, there's fortune, and things like this. But I believe the true measurement of success is what your children say about you when you're not around. And so, because they see everything. And so, after my wife passed away in 2011, just a few weeks after that, a good friend of mine called me and said, hey, my sister-in-law is moving here from Wyoming. She has stage 4 breast cancer. Her name is Amanda. She's 38 years old. Can you help her find an oncologist? And ironically, Margot and I had only spent the last month of her life in Northern California. So I didn't know the guy very well myself, but he was there the last month of her life. So I took her, and I didn't know she was African American. My buddy is white. And so when I met Amanda, I realized that she was Black. And she had stage 4 breast cancer. She had 3 children. She had no husband. She didn't have much money, if any. She didn't have really good insurance. So I took her to Margot's oncologist. He ordered tests. And what I noticed is that she was treated much differently than Margot and I. Of course, I was mostly with her all the time. She was amazingly beautiful. She could light up a room. And so it just made me feel uncomfortable. And then, of course, she didn't have enough insurance to pay for all the chemotherapy. So I gave him my credit card to help. And that's became the Love for Margot Foundation. And so I started in Oakland. Well, Oakland is predominantly African American. And the women, and so we would get referrals from social workers. And so we would vet the person, make sure that they were actually below the poverty line. And if they qualified, then I would meet with them first and get to know them and get to know their story. And I would say 80% in Oakland were African American. And then we would give them a financial grant of $5,000, $1,000 per month for 5 months. And those women were so sweet, so godly. Very seldom, if ever, did they have a husband or a father in the house. And the majority of the time, they were raising their children's children, because their children were hooked on crack cocaine or heroin or other drugs. And I've done a lot of study around this, and I believe that this started in because when I was growing up, America was, white and Black, and and there wasn't all these big drug things, right? And so that really started in the Vietnam War when someone in some agency started bringing heroin back, and that destroyed the African community in New York City primarily, and then it spread to other cities. And then more recently, I don't know when, they started cocaine and using crack cocaine, and that spread amongst the African American. And they literally destroyed Los Angeles and Oakland and other cities like that. And I'm sure that hip hop played a role in that too. Not the initial hip hop, but it got a little crazier down the road. And so I think it was an orchestrated attempt to destroy the African American community for some reason. I don't know why. And so for me, my heart goes out to that. My heart goes out to anybody, black, white, green, gray, I don't care, that is suffering for some reason. That's just the way I am. And the stories, I mean, just right now I'm thinking about Benika. Benika was a 35-year-old woman, stage 1 breast cancer. She never should have died. And so we gave her a grant. I got to know her very well. She started making little kits for the other women that were going through chemotherapy because she knew the side effects and all that. So she would give them this and share her experience with them. And so why did Benika die? So Benika, from age, I want to say 6, it might have been 8, from 8 to 14, let's say, was sold for sex by her mother so her mother could buy crack cocaine. So she had all this emotional trauma. And in those days, I mean, that's what we do at Mountains of Hope. We work with that emotional trauma, because that was the cause of her disease. In my wife's case, I know what the cause of her disease was emotional trauma. And Louise Hay said that almost every illness is related to some emotional trauma. And so many beautiful women. And so, unfortunately, it worked with, I forget her name right now, but a beautiful woman, probably about 50 years old. And so maybe, around 50. I wish I could remember her name right now. But she came to us, and she was a ticket counter person for Delta Airlines for over 20 years. And I want to say, now this would have been in 2014, 15. I think she was only making $15 an hour. And what happened was that they messed up her COBRA insurance when she got sick. So now she didn't have insurance. She was way behind. So I gave her the money to help with that. And she was one of the few cases that $5,000 got her through treatment, and she was cancer-free, and she went back to work. I would say that was very rare. That was my intention when I started this, okay? These women have no money to begin with. Now they can't work, and their expenses have gone up, right? And so I would say, okay, we'll give you $1,000 a month for 5 months, get you through treatment, you go back to work. It happened at least one time that I know of, and not very often, right? And so, and it was just after a while, after 4 years of this, I felt like these women were sheep being led to slaughter. And then I started doing it in Southern California, in Palm Desert, and those were Mexican women, undocumented workers that came here to, pick our crops, which I guess we don't do, and clean our hotel rooms, and they get cancer. And the great state of California, God bless them, would give them 18 months worth of insurance, enough for that guy to put a hole in their chest and fill it with poison every week, enough time for that guy to cut off 1 or 2 breasts and remove some lymph nodes from underneath their armpit and make their arms swollen for the rest of their life, and enough for that guy to lay him on a General Electric machine and burn the hell out of them. And then after all that damage is done, their insurance is over. And so those stories were just unbelievable. I'll never forget sitting in a Wendy's fast food restaurant. And so I didn't speak Spanish, and they didn't speak English the majority of the time. And so in this particular case, it was the mother with the cancer. I want to say the husband was next to her, and then one of the children, neither one of the adults spoke English, and the child was sitting next to me, maybe 15 years old. And this woman got so emotional, and she literally lifted up her tube top, and there were 2 fresh scars where they would removed her breast, and just the tears and the devastation. I remember another beautiful woman, maybe 45 years old. Her son was the interpreter, 18 years old. And so after her insurance had expired, they left her with 1 breast. And so we're sitting there, and I'm going, does your mother want financial support, or does she want me to help her get another breast? And he said, she would like it if you could help her get another breast. And unfortunately, she was on blood thinners, so she couldn't do the surgery at that time. So we just gave her the financial grant. And I could go, and the one woman, this woman was Filipino, her husband was Chinese. And when I was cleaning the garage, I just saw their picture, 10 children, aged 3 to 20, Miriam Ng, her husband is Johnson. And so she calls me up and says, hey, I was referred to Love for Margot Foundation. We could really use some help. I say, hey, no problem. I just have one criteria that, I've seen your financial situation. You definitely qualify. I want to meet with you in person. That's the only requirement, actually. And she said, well, I'm in so much pain. And she was in South San Francisco. She says, I don't know if I can make it to Oakland. I'm in so much pain. I said, well, that's okay. I'd be happy to come to your home. And she said, let me call my husband and I'll call you right back. She calls her husband. She says, okay, we'll be there tomorrow. And literally she walked in. You could tell every step she took was just so painful. And she sits in my office, and it was probably around right after Thanksgiving, I'm going to say. And I had a dear friend who was the general manager running my business. And so he always wanted to get involved too, a very religious guy. So we come in and we're talking. They have 10 children. And the reason it was so painful, where she used to have a breast, she now had a melon-sized tumor on her chest. Mm. And so I'll never forget this. My friend's name is Samir. And he says, hey, we would, he loves kids. And he says, hey, we'd love to come and meet your family. And would that be okay? And they say, sure, we would love that. So, of course, everybody forgets but me. And I think Christmas was Thursday that week, and now it's Saturday. And I go, hey, we got to do something for this family. So I call my assistant. I say, listen, we need to buy 10 gifts, nice Christmas gifts for kids from 3 to 20. I don't know the sexes with the ages, so just buy, electronic stuff or whatever, and hire a Santa Claus and meet me at this address tomorrow at 2:00. So, and we have this on video. So it was me, Samir, and my assistant. And we show up there, and I swear to you, I mean, the house couldn't have been, I think it was her parents' house, and they were living there, and all these people are living there. And it couldn't be, the most it was 1,800 square feet, 2 stories in South San Francisco. And these children are lined up like this, and they all clean clothes, look you right in the eye, shake your hand, nice to meet you. So very well raised, very Christian family. And Miriam was too sick to come out and join us. She was in the bedroom. And so Santa's there, we start opening gifts, and so she hears all the commotion. So she comes out about halfway through, and she's sitting at the dining room table, and we're all just doing it. And dumbass Santa goes, and how was your year, Miriam? And it's like, but it was just a beautiful experience. And so that was on Sunday. Christmas was on Thursday. She passed away on Friday. And the first person he called to tell us was the Love for Margot Foundation. And of course, we went to her memorial service. And I could go on and on and on with these stories, which forever changed me. My wife, love, and her death and that grief changed me. But Love for Margot Foundation and those women, starting with Amanda, who passed 18 months after I met her. I remember sitting at her bedside, and it was crazy. I mean, it was a crazy house, and there's 30, 40 people there, and she's literally laying in the living room, and they're watching an NBA game, and unconscious. They couldn't even put morphine in her mouth anymore. They have to put it in her anus. She was that close to death. And I think so I just remember, in all this chaos, I just remember sitting there for a couple hours and just rubbing her hand, just to know that someone was there. Because I was blessed to have this work and this experience with the Living Dying Project and going through this with my wife. And so I've sat at probably 30 different bedsides now, and I don't think there's any more sacred work than being there with somebody as they're transitioning out of body. And so Amanda was the reason that Love for Margot Foundation was created, and all those women are the reason that Mountains of Hope was created.
You said so much there. I just want to address a few things, and I want to bring Jess into this. You talked about cocaine being put into the Black community by the CIA. And I believe that to be true as well.
CIA. I didn't mention that because I've been watching the Lioness. I don't want to interact with them.
Okay, I get that.
I said an agency.
Is that an agency? Yes, and I understand that to be the case. This it's actually well documented at this point, and I don't think they don't even deny it anymore. But what I want to talk about is this, because when you're a system engineer like myself, and you allow yourself to get beyond the noise of believing that race, skin suits are real, and you see things, the systems for what they are. I see the same thing happen, what they did in West Virginia with pharmaceutical companies, and how they destroyed West Virginia and that community there. And that was a predominantly white community. Yeah. And that's why I try to get folks to realize that if you really begin to, as Viktor Frankl, who's over my left shoulder here, talks about, you can't compare whose trauma was worse.
Right.
That's noise. To say, if someone stabs you and someone shoots me, and I argue, well, I got shot, so I'm worse off. The point is, we both got assaulted. Can we now deal with that issue and heal? And that's what I advocate about, letting the whole race thing go and really beginning to see how everybody who is not in that 1% of the boardroom, I call it, is a victim. And you being programmed and you being controlled, and it's dividing us. Now, I want to bring Jess into this because, Jess, you showed and share with me when you were at Mountain Hope first, foremost, you were there holding space for people who were dealing with issues and needed to be healed, and you yourself had your own issues that you were trying to heal. Mm-hmm. Now, I want you to talk about that, but I also want you to take what you shared with me recently as we talk about these white communities now that's been impacted by fentanyl and ice and these other drugs that are being made by pharmaceutical companies, and they're being destroyed, and how your brother is stepping into that and putting himself in danger, despite the fact that, living love energy and giving love in the best way he can, despite the fact there's obviously consequences and dangers associated with that. So if you wouldn't mind just sharing your thoughts on both of those.
Yeah. When I got to Mountains of Hope, I definitely was going through my own storm, though I didn't realize that the storm was going to get heavier after I left. One of the concerns that my family had with me going to Colombia was coming directly from my father, who had a very controlling personality, especially when it came to me. And so being in Colombia definitely triggered his father needing to control dynamic. And I felt like I was in a really safe space. So I just reassured him that I'm in a safe space and thanks for loving me. But I just kind of let it go. And what I didn't know was that behind the scenes, he took that as a rejection, and he decided to take his estate and will it to somebody else. He took me and my brother off of his will. And then he premeditated his plan for ending his life. And it was, I understand it's the impact of being in your own mental health storm. He suffered from untreated or not treated well enough bipolar disorder. And so going into the deep depths of depression is its own storm. And being in the state that he was in, he was able to buy a weapon and complete that task fairly quickly. And so it created this bigger storm in my family of dealing with suicide and the impact of that sudden grief. And then there was a double impact because of the contradiction, the conflict, the war that's been happening in Utah with assault weapons, and also in Las Vegas. There's just kind of this hub that's going on, and we're seeing an increase of gun violence. And so my brother has stepped into that space as more of a peace officer within his neighborhood, and looking at this drug storm that he's personally living inside of, and then taking the storm that we went through and being like, how do I navigate this? How do I help people find a way through this? And then this last week he was assaulted, just sucker punched by someone, and his video's going viral now, talking about how a Black man strikes out at a white man, you know, inside of this drug war that's now happening. So it hits very close to home because it's just like in the conflict and destruction of the human divide, and how it's not only impacting our personal life, it's impacting our neighborhoods, it's impacting every environment on every level.
Yeah. Listen, I don't watch much television, but when I fly, I download something and watch it. So I got hooked on this thing called Lioness, which is a CIA program, and I'm just blown away by all the violence. You know, it's programming. When we're just being programmed with violence, and now it's the norm. You know, you look at cities like Chicago. You know, Oakland's actually getting better. You know, but Chicago, Los Angeles, I mean, Miami, there's parts of Miami that you just can't go to, right? Mm-hmm. But it's all this programming, and there's an agenda behind this. They're programming for what they want to do in the future, right? So we have to, one, realize that what goes in here, we have to really watch. We have to guard our mind, and we have to guard our heart. But all this violence is just, it's out of control, frankly. And everybody wants to escape from it. So now everybody's in the drug addiction, or scrolling, or eating, or shopping, or pornography, or sex. And it's like everybody wants to escape because it's so ugly. You know, if you read all the patents and all the warnings when they started television, which I think was in the 40s, I might be mistaken, but I know when I was growing up, there was 3 channels. It was black and white. You had to get off your ass to go change the channel, right? And there was no violence. I mean, there was Leave It to Beaver, there was Andy and Opie, and there was Marcus Welby, and it was just, you know, and that's how they sucked us in. They sucked us in, and they've done that with society. Look at the culture, you know. And if you really study in the late 60s, what was really going on with the rock and roll and the free sex and the Manson murders and all that was all orchestrated. Okay. That was not by accident. That was by design. And so it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And somebody benefits, and that's the very top, okay, are the ones benefiting. And you mentioned earlier about racism. What I see today is not color racism, it's economic racism. Mm-hmm. You know, you mentioned West Virginia, those were white. It's economics, and that's where the problem is. And what's happening now is that the middle class is being destroyed, you know. And why? Because when I was growing up, you know, individuals own the businesses, the supermarkets, the hardware store, and all that. Now it's big corporations, and and those people had a heart and soul. These corporations have no heart and soul. They have one mandate: to get as much return as they can for their investors. And that's where we're losing it. You know, we have to go back to the basics. I hate the fact that I use Amazon, but it's so easy and so convenient that, you know, that's just the way life has become. So how do we offset that? Well, we be super kind to one another. We be super kind to others, right? And then, because listen, there's good things about Amazon as well, right? There's good things about the internet as well. So the thing is to focus on the good and try to help people that are suffering. And, you know, I always say this, there's allegedly 8 billion of us here. And if 4 billion of us would just lift up someone less fortunate, this whole consciousness would just shatter. And we would realize that we're together and we're united. And that's where our superpower is. But look at this divide and conquer, you know, black, white, Christian, Muslim, gay, straight. It used to be gay, right? It was just gay. And then it was GB something LT, and then it was GBLTQ. Now there's like 10 letters. I don't even know what they all stand for.
LGBTQIA++.
Yeah. So it's just more division. You have you know, and then there's religious racism. You know, the whole problem in the Middle East is they're all the same. Okay. The Jews and the Arabs, they're all Semites. They're all the same, right? But then you have the Sunnis and the Shias that can't agree on whether Muhammad's, whether he's the guy or is his brother or cousin. I don't even know what it is, right? But it's just crazy, insane stuff. But it starts with programming. I told you this. I'm embarrassed to say this, but I'm going to share it here. When I was maybe 7th or 8th grade, a buddy of mine went downtown to the University of Cincinnati a college football game, and I'm sitting there, and some guy from UC, some black guy starts running, and I jump out of my seat and I go, look at that nigger run, right? And there was a black gentleman, an elderly black gentleman that just was in front of me, and he just turned around and he looked at me. I've never felt such shame in my entire life. I never used that word ever again. And but it was one of those moments that was just programming, right? And so I'm so grateful for that experience that I realized, whoa, what are you doing? And I've never felt such shame. So listen, we have to undo our childhood programming. And that's one of the beautiful things that we do at Mountains of Hope is let's look at that. Let's look at the inner child. Let's look at the shadow work. Let's look at that emotional trauma, and let's try to open that heart and repair it.
Absolutely. And that's really the purpose of our show. We talk about race being a lie, is that folks don't realize that you are being programmed. And it's not just race, it's your identity in all areas, whether it's your religion, whether it's your sexual orientation, whether it's your gender, whether it's your age, whether it's your career, your political party, all these things that
your
get you to
mental
see,
health diagnosis.
your mental health diagnosis, all these things that get you to see yourself as other from someone else. Race to me just adds another element to it that makes it even more of a drainage. Yeah. And that's where I really want to use this opportunity. I want to go into our musical break. I wanted to go into earlier where we had such a good flow, but I definitely want to get this song in because I believe, to your point, Mike, about technology, and that's why this song exists. I call it a frequency signal. It's a combination of a message, which is more of a lecture combined with music, so it can resonate with people at that level. And it doesn't have a genre. It's designed to meet people and resonate. But this is a fully human anthem that we talk about because, to your point, Mike, I believe that the solution is for folks to become fully human and see themselves as fully human. And the song is going to talk about what that looks like and the importance of when you do that, how you become liberated. And that's what this whole discussion has been about, is how we've turned our wreckage into wisdom to become fully human. So let's do this.
Can I pause you for just 1 second before you play it?
Yes.
Because I just want to repreface my brother into this conversation since we mentioned it and some words that he wrote about it.
Okay.
He said that someone took the video and then repackaged it in black versus white rhetoric. And that's all that it takes for the algorithms to amplify the hate.
Yeah.
And he said, I hate to even share this link, but it's really important that we provide detail of these experiences. And then he went on to say, I'm lucky. I'm so fucking lucky. I could have been stabbed like the victim a few years ago that I witnessed, or I could have been the victim of a gun once again, because it's happened several times. And it's difficult for us to understand that these situations might see me as a chronic victim. But each of these situations provides more grace, more gratitude, and more wisdom than I ever could have anticipated. So call me delusional, call me in denial, but I feel like if we can incorporate these lessons, we can learn further.
Absolutely. And gratitude for sharing. Amen to that.
Thank you.
And let me say this too, Mike, because I want to make sure that in case this video gets cut and you saying nigger gets extracted, and then they're saying he said nigger, this is Mike Murphy. And they would do that. They would put it in that kind of context.
Right.
So let me say how I look at this and how I address that situation. First of all, I think it's idiotic for leaders in my race at Skin Suit, when I identified that, to accept that nigger was our personal insult and just build on that and take that as though it exists and it's true. It's not. It's just a word, first of all. Second of all, the way I look at it is this. It's a word to describe certain characteristics of people. And I've seen white niggers, black niggers, Spanish niggers. I've seen niggers all over. So I don't just hold niggers to a particular race. It's the characteristics of behaviors that people exhibit. But it's taught to us to be racist in that context as a way of dividing. And then my final part, if anyone says you're racist for saying it, Mike, is this. And you've done more for black people than 90% of black people I know. So I know you're not racist. And so that's how this country does now. They try to cancel you down to one word, one moment, to say, because you said this, that everything else you've done is irrelevant to that.
Yeah, I mean, I was a 12-year-old dumbass, right? So that was the point I was making, you know.
And that's the cultural givens you were given as well.
But I lived in Cincinnati, Ohio. You cross the Ohio River, you're in Kentucky, and then you hear that word all the time, right? So that's the reason I bring it up. I was so fortunate that there was just this kind, beautiful black man in front of me that didn't have to say a word. Just by looking at me, taught me a very valuable lesson.
And so that's the power of words. I'm sorry, go ahead, Jess.
I just want to bring up that you did say it again. You know, so I think what King is bringing up in this conversation is that our audience who's watching right now is going to have something to say about that. That King is continuing this conversation when you said it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But that's their problem.
Right. That's what King's saying.
And see, unfortunately, that's what I'm saying. That's how the construct will be used against us.
Yeah.
To say, because you said it again, regardless of the context, this is what you meant. This is who you are. And that's why I feel that the Fully Human movement is so important. The same thing with your brother, Jess. He's aware enough to realize how that can be used, and he's weaponized. So it's weaponizing him to now just drive clicks and views. And that's what the world's come to. If I can say some outlandish to get clicks and views, that's the quickest path to love, or I'm sorry, quickest path to wealth. And it's not. It's the quickest path to hell, and you might get money in the middle of that, but it won't be sustainable. And I just want to share, that's why I feel that building this fully human Trinity movement with you all is because you two are the most least racist white folks, but I don't see you as white folks. I see you as energy sources that's connected to me. But I've never felt any kind of racial animosity from either of you all in our entire existence. And I've seen how you all operate around other people. I hear your messages when you're talking about. So I know you all are fully human, and you're the antithesis of what I wrote about in this particular frequency signal. That's why I want to share it with you all, because you are who I had in mind when I created this. And that's the message I want to get out to the world, that this is what fully human looks like.
This is not music. This is a frequency signal. AI is the instrument, King. Service to others is the rent you pay for the room here on earth. Muhammad Ali. There are 4 agreements that are required before proceeding. They must be spoken before being. Number one, I'm down, down. Number one, understand that energy is the law. Everything is frequency, and everything you saw in constant motion, never fixed, either increasing or decreasing. And increasing is the seeking. We don't identify by labels that they gave. Race was engineered to keep your genius enslaved, not post-racial. This is deeper, this is the shame. The construct is the enemy. We are putting you onto the game. When you carry their label, you surrender half your power. 50% of your 8 forms gone within the hour. The construct is lethal, laminating your inhibitions, forcing the double consciousness, destroying your volitions. Human emergence. If you don't believe, allow me to demonstrate what your spiritual energy number without hesitate. Right now from 0 to 10 at this exact time. If it's 6 or less, then the construct has your mind. The energy that's draining doesn't vanish into air. It floods into your shadow and it meets you everywhere. Your shadow becomes your default. Now it's running the machine, governing your thoughts and behaviors quietly unseen. Your emotions lose the anchor, your spirituality fades. Your soul energy gets muffled, your wisdom energy degrades. Your faith begins to atrophy, you're running on the fumes, creating a predator-prey relationship between the system and the soul. That 50% draining is the normal state. Over your actions now you're in constant debate. But the moment that you release it, something shifts. You stop vibrating in the womb and catch the sovereign drift.
This is what it means to be fully human.
Fully aware, fully mindful,
Fully grateful too.
principle centered in everything you do.
You own your mind with a commitment to grow.
Sovereignty is the only identity you know.
Your intention is your identity.
Your purpose is the intent.
This is what it means to be fully human.
Transcend the lethal label and ignite your soul.
Volitions.
Trade descriptive, struggle for your generative missions. The first step is a gift, a bridge you choose to build, giving to a deserving soul and letting voids be filled. That's how you enter the tribe, by leading as a giver. Sending your frequency signal is a beautiful intention to deliver. It's a declaration, connect, engage, co-create. The tribal resonance system is the key to every gate. The first act is sacred, it's a signal to the stars that you're ready to heal the wreckage in the sky.
This is what it means to be fully human.
Fully aware, fully mindful,
Fully grateful to.
principle centered in everything you do.
You own your mind with a commitment to grow.
Sovereignty is the only identity you know.
This is what it means
To be fully human,
transcend the legal label.
let ignite your soul.
Volitions.
To trade descriptive, struggle for your generative mission. 180 days, no shortcut, no cheat code. A journey through the smelter on a sovereign sacred road. 6 months of solitude, the fire in the forge, clearing out the shadows that the construct tried to gorge. 8 energies in motion, 3 tears to emerge. The liver, then the seeker, then the co-creation surge. 6 pillars of the graduate, the graduation day. Identity and growth mindset are leading the way.
It's not a destination, it's the journey of the breath. Choosing life and increase over the construct's slow death. Can you feel the frequency? Can you hear the call? When you are fully human, lifting up one lifts up all.
Fully human.
Quantum connected, the signal is 10.
Fully human.
The increase is now 180 days.
Fully human.
Walk with me.
I am sending you my signal
Are you picking up
of who we are
when we are
when we are
fully human?
Ancestors.
I'm broadcasting my signal.
Ancestors.
M-E-O-P-O-K-E.
We call your name,
M-E-O-P-O-K-E.
we call your name, we call your name.
M-E-O-P-O-K-E.
Are you picking up?
Are
You picking up?
Nice, maestro.
Thank you. That's the Fully Human Anthem. That's what we want folks to realize. That's what we're building. That's where all this work, and it comes from our wreckage to wisdom. And so I just want to get a chance as we get ready to wrap up today's show, to share any closing thoughts that you all may have on today's topic, or anything that's in your heart to share with our guests.
While I was listening to that song, I was remembering last night watching Colombian play Congo in the World Cup. And I didn't see any colors. I just saw magnificent athletes. And it's an exciting experience to watch, to be in Medellin and be watching that, because the TV's like 20 seconds delayed. So you'll hear the whole city going nuts when Colombia does something great, and then you see it on your TV 15, 20, because the whole community is enmeshed in this. And maybe that's why soccer's the world's greatest game. And so, but I didn't see color. I just saw great athletes playing a game for their country for pride. And it was beautiful to watch.
Yeah, it is a great time to be alive, to witness the shift in our own consciousness between when we did see color and when we're seeing the world differently as an array of oneness. And I think I'd like to bring through is just we talked a little bit about violence and that some cities are getting worse. And I know that Medellin has been like a poster board for the world to be the worst. And, Mike, you kind of lead with that, like, of any human, I'm like the worst of all humans. Medellin is like that, of any city that we've gone through the shit, right? And what they're creating from that is really a beautiful place of peace and connection and community. And there is light on the other side of these hard storms, because we learn so much through them. So just sharing that hope for the world that through all storms come wisdom.
Yeah, nice.
Absolutely, I concur with that. And as you all said, that I'd always heard that Medellin was the city of Pablo Escobar and kidnappings happening. That's the image I had. And so my initial thoughts of going to Mountains of Hope was that it was outweighed by wanting to meet Mike Murphy, but it was the fact that, Mike, the way you had built it out, I got picked up from the airport. I didn't even saw Medellin. That's how I wanted to. And I actually got a chance to go into the city later on, but you have a compound and you are a remote away from the world. Yeah. And for the first time, the noise stopped, because I wasn't listening to the news. I wasn't watching my YouTube to find out what's going on in America and having the algorithm keep telling me you're a victim. This is all the stuff happening to Black people. And right now, Black people are under attack, because the algorithm continually feeds you that. Once you show that you have that interest, it's going to keep hitting you with that.
Yeah. And
so what I've done over a 180-day journey is to say, I'm going to program the algorithm to only give me positive information, uplifting information, and I get the best, most wisest things. And I just want to end with this quote. And it was by AI, actually. Like the song, I used AI to help me make the song. And I could tell this was an AI generated quote based off Napoleon Hill. So I've never heard Napoleon Hill make this quote, but it's still a beautiful quote nonetheless. And he says that the powerful blessing never comes to the unbroken and untested. You have to be broken and tested to receive the powerful blessings. Because if you have, for the unbroken and untested, ego tells them they're the reason why they're successful. But when you've been broken and tested, you have the empathy to see others and recognize that how you see in them what you need to do to make yourself better. And that's why, if you've been broken and tested, which is a wreckage to wisdom that we've both gone through, that's how we can recognize the powerful blessings that we're building right now and the impact we have on other people's lives. So I just want to share that. And as we wrap up today's show, until next Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, let's all continue to work towards being more fully human. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Amen.
Race is a lie, a ghost in the machine, a veil over the eye. Race is a lie, a script for the managed, a reason to die. It's the dementia, the spirit, it's the glitch in the code. It's the heavy, heavy baggage on a sovereign road. Dissolve the construct. Yes. Yeah, it started as a lie, a whisper in the dark, designed to keep the brothers from finding the spark. Father is a soul whose sovereign operating system was no longer whole. He didn't pull that trigger from his fully human place. The construct had the wheel, the construct ran the race. So stop fighting your father and dismantle the disease. If a lawyer wrote the code, the architect holds